The RMS Titanic, digital story by Erica Davis. April 15, 1912 holds to be one of the largest marine disasters. The RMS Titanic took sail on its maiden voyage on April 10th, leaving the Southampton harbor at noon. At 6:30 p.m., the ship docked in Cherbourg, France, to collect additional passengers and moved on to Queenstown, Ireland that night. On April 11th, the Titanic had all 2,208 souls aboard and was ready to make its long haul for New York. Titanic was known as unsinkable. A crew member was even noticed for telling a female passenger that God himself couldn't sink this ship. Titanic was owned and operated by White Star Line. J. Bruce Ismay, an English businessman, served as chairman and managing director of the White Star Line. When wanting to complete their ship, White Star Line reached out to J.P. Morgan for assistance in financing. Morgan approved the funding request. Titanic's initial design was created and approved in mid-1908. Construction started in March of 1909 with the laying of the keel on the 31st. Titanic was built by Harland & Wolff Shipyard in Belfast, Ireland. It was the largest ship at the time to ever float. The chief naval architect for Titanic was Thomas Andrews. Andrews started with Harland & Wolff as an apprentice at the age of 19. At the age of 28, he became head of the design department. In 1907, he was appointed managing director of Harland & Wolff. He was not only the main architect for Titanic, but also its sister ship, Olympic. Ismay and Andrew had clashing design ideas when it came to Titanic. Andrews wanted safety, but Ismay wanted luxury. One conflict was about the amount of deck space for the first-class people. In the end, Ismay won, removing lifeboats from the main deck in order to provide space. Another conflict was the metal that would wrap the ship. Ismay didn't want to spend the money on something that wasn't luxurious. He selected a cheaper metal that would be brittle when it hit cold waters. The most luxurious ship in the world was known as unsinkable. The finest ship needed the finest things, and it needed a captain. Captain Edward J. Smith was known to be the best captain in the world. He was an experienced captain and favored by the wealthy. Smith held charge of the Olympic until 1911, when a naval ship collided into the side, rendering the ship unfit to sail. Bruce Ismay wanted only the finest things on his ship. Therefore, in 1912, he hired the millionaire's captain to be the head of his ship. Smith agreed and began the test runs only a few weeks after. With Captain Smith at the wheel and all souls on board, Titanic set sail. They had their heading, New York, a new life for some. The ship continued to sail, hitting close to its maximum speed, and hoped to make it a day early. All was well for Titanic, until the evening of April 14th, when iceberg warnings began to flow in. Titanic received 6 different warnings from nearby ships on April 14th. Traveling close to the maximum speed, Titanic making it hard, if not impossible, to turn when the iceberg appeared. Captain Smith saw the iceberg, but by the time he was able to give the orders, it was too late. The starboard side took a hefty blow, peeling the brittle metal like a tin can, rattling the entire ship and waking almost all the passengers. No one was ready for the news that was about to hit the deck. Designed with 16 compartments that were thought to be watertight once closed, proved not as reliable as first imagined. Due to the thought of Titanic being unsinkable, the doors were manufactured for if a fire were to take place. They could close the door and let it burn without it traveling. Engineers and firefighters would be able to control the blaze when reaching a port. The fall side is there was a gap at the top of each door just in case someone was to be trapped inside. Therefore, once one fills completely, it will begin to spill over the top and fill the next room. With 5 compartments completely open and the others filling with water, the original 5 turned into all 16, and soon the whole ship. There was no question. Titanic was going to sink. At 12:25 a.m. on April 15th, the crew began to load the lifeboats with women and children first. The Carpathia was southeast of the Titanic, about 58 miles, picked up the distress call and began sailing to the rescue for passengers. Even though the Carpathia was close, it wasn't close enough. The ship would be completely submerged before Carpathia would ever reach them. 400 miles was how far the ship was from land when the iceberg struck. 160 minutes, the time it took the Titanic to sink after hitting the iceberg. 2 hours and 40 minutes. 705 people in the lifeboats listening to the death cries of 1,500 plus people drowning in the North Atlantic after the ship sank. Conflicts began to develop on whether or not to go back and save more. When reaching a consensus, a few boats were sent back to save more, but it was too late. Hypothermia was setting in from the water being around 28 degrees Fahrenheit. The wreck of the ship was found in two pieces, the bow and the stern, by Ballard in 1985, who released precise coordinates of the shipwreck. 41.726931 degrees north and negative 49.94853 degrees west. The wreck was found at the depth of 12,000 feet. The Titanic took with it 810 passengers and 685 crew, for a total toll of 1,495 human lives. We still remember the day well. Although there is no more living survivors, their stories shall live on forever. Now, the big question. What do you believe to be the cause of the unsinkable ship sitting on the seafloor?